Hello and welcome. My name is Brook Meissner, and I'm one of the assistant directors and career coaches here at the Vanderbilt Career Center. I'm also a Peabody Human Development Counseling alum, and today we're going to spend some time talking about the topic of how to conduct an effective job search. Having spent a couple of years here at the Career Center, one of the most common topics I have worked with both students and young alums around is the topic of the best way to invest their time to make sure they're getting traction in conducting their job search. I know that I've talked with a number of students who have tried spending a lot of time applying online and have not had a lot of success with that. So what we're going to hopefully do is give you some ideas about some ways that might be a little bit more helpful. So the question is, how do we know the most effective way to conduct a job search? We're going to look to the numbers. We're going to look at what other students and alums have found effective. So we've got some slides here, and on this first slide, what you're going to see is the results of the graduating student survey. And this is a survey that is conducted every year, a couple of weeks before seniors graduate. And it asks them if they have, if they're planning to head to graduate school, or if they've obtained a full-time position or a part-time position. If they have obtained a position, it asks them how they found that position. So you can see here from the chart, you can see the stats for both the years 2011 and 2010. And we're going to look at another chart later with this similar type of information. But you'll see at the top that family and friends is definitely the most common means. Both years that we have, we're looking at the data, that's the way that students have found their internships and full-time positions. And as you look down the list, you can see some others. We'll talk a little bit more about some of these later and give some examples. But another thing I want to point out here is as you look at the data, you can see the numbers aren't going to add up to 100%, and the reasons why is we're asking these students what are the different methods that they've used. As you can see on here, there's a number of different methods that they've used. So most students are using multiple means to find a job. When I think, for example, of the last two job searches I've had, one had 3 different things on that list and the other had 4. So I think one of the good lessons that you can take away from looking at this is that commonly, it's not just a single means of conducting a job search, it's using multiple methods. So keep that in mind. We're going to flip to another example. And this comes from a different source. This comes from the Summer Experience Survey. This is a survey that we conduct of all the returning undergraduate students. And we ask them how is it that they find their summer internships. We use some different wording here, so this might give you some other ideas about how these students found their internships. But I think probably the main thing that you'll notice is that just like with the last time, you'll see that the most common here is networking. Networking is the most common means by which people are finding their internships and their jobs. Hopefully that can definitely be another takeaway for you. You can also see that employer website, both this and the last survey, one of the most common means by which people find their jobs. But as I've seen from a number of students, that doesn't seem to be the number one means by which that happens. Usually, it is both applying on the employer website and it's also networking with people in that given company. An example of that is a student that I worked with who applied to, he came in and told me he applied to 42 different companies. And he waited to see how many companies he heard back from, and he ended up hearing back from 2 of those 42 companies. And those happened to be the 2 companies that he had contacts at. And I don't think that's by any means a coincidence. It ended up happening that in one of those companies, during the interview, he ended up talking with someone who had gone to college with his father. He knew ahead of time that this guy had gone to a college with his father, but he didn't know that they were good friends, and they were able to talk about some of the common experiences. So an example on that side. One other thing I'll point out as you're looking at this data is if you look at some of the other means, apart from the networking, for example, you look at things like professional networking, faculty, alumni connections, career center services, even cold calling. Again, what most of those things are doing is building connections, building contacts. Let's go to another slide here, and if you aren't familiar with this book, I'll quickly mention it. This is a book that was written by one of the economics professors here here at Vanderbilt, and he wrote a book called Investing in College, A Guide for the Perplexed. And this resource is primarily something that would be appealing to parents or students who are looking at college, but Basically what Dr. Getz does is he takes a look at what the difference is between some of the different colleges out there. For example, what's the difference between a highly selective school and a school that isn't very selective? One of the main conclusions that he comes to is really what you're paying for and what you're getting at a highly selective school like Vanderbilt is you're getting a group of people. You're getting a network, people that you can speak with, that you can talk with, who can help give you direction about different paths that you want to take, who can help give you ideas about employers that you want to pursue. So that's definitely one resource to spend some time at. And then I'll mention another one. One of the most common resources that's discussed around job searches is the book, What Color is Your Parachute? We've talked a little bit here about some of the different methods to use in conducting a job search. But if you really want some ideas about how to dig in and to put some of those methods in practice, this would be a great resource to use. For example, we've talked about the value of networking. This will give you some examples about how that'll happen. But one of the things I'll point out here is, as you can see on the list of 5 worst ways to find a job from What Color is Your Parachute, you can get this idea that basically, if I'm going to sum up a lot of the list that you're seeing, there's a lot of emphasis on quantity, looking at a high quantity of employers, but there's not a lot of quality. If you're just sending out resumes at random to employers, if you're just applying online, if you're just answering local newspaper ads, quite often there's going to be a lack of focusing on a couple of key employers. And oftentimes when I work with students or young alums, one of the things I'll get them to do is to stop and to think about all of the employers they're spending time at, and then ask them, is the amount of time that they're investing in things like using the internet and applying online, is that commensurate with the results that we're seeing, the charts that I just showed you that say that networking and connections are the ways that people find their positions. So we're going to turn to one more slide here, our last one. This is again from What Color is Your Parachute? And here you can see a list of the 5 best ways to find a job. Certainly a little more emphasis here on quality of building relationships, building connections, networking. You can see just on that first one, family, friends, people in your community. If you look a little bit further in the list, you'll see this idea of having a group of people that you do your job search with. So these are all some great ways that you can both use networking as a means to find your job, but also as a means to broaden your network just for other experiences and other ways to grow. One great resource I need to mention on this as well is if you're an alum and if you're thinking about ways that you can connect to other people in the Vanderbilt community, definitely make sure you take advantage of the viewconnect.com website, both as a way to connect with the different Vanderbilt chapters in different cities. I've talked to a number of students. I know one student who was looking for quite a while for a position in New York City and was looking for some very competitive finance positions. He actually met someone through a Vanderbilt chapter event, and through that actually connected with people from one of our schools in common that we often compete with, and ended up meeting some people from that school, and those people ended up putting him in touch with the people that led to his full-time position. So he was very grateful for that. Also on VU Connect, you'll find things like the Career Network, and you can use the Career Network to find some other people to do some informational interviewing with if you're just looking to explore some different career opportunities. So hopefully that is helpful, and it's certainly been a pleasure.